The Acolyte series is now completed, and it's a bit of a hit and miss for me. Has the season finale of episode 8 of The Acolyte done enough to satisfy us? Now, the season finale of The Acolyte brings us back to present day, where we see the events of the past finally catching up to our heroes. Mae, Osha, and the Sith Lord will come face to face in a final standoff as the truth plays centre stage and soon followed by the consequences that cannot be undone. With Osha seeing into the future, she and the Sith Lord come to a mutual agreement which sets them on a journey to the location of Jedi Master Sol and Mae, where we witness the final standoff between our heroes. With the truth shared, remorse given, and actions committed that cannot be taken back, this sets our heroes' fates in motion. With the season finale now shared, episode 8 brings the show to a close, sharing the full extent of the cover-up of the Jedi, furthering their corruption, setting themselves up to be the cause of their own downfall, and potentially teasing us with a season 2 setup. With the season finale now shared, episode 8 brings the show to a close, sharing the full extent of the cover-up of the Jedi, furthering their corruption, setting themselves up to be the cause of their own downfall, and potentially teeing us up for a season 2 setup. We're getting roughly 48 minutes in length in episode 8. Now, you could say it was obvious, but my prediction was right in the end, as we get to see Osha finally finding out the truth of what the Jedi did. Now, with Osha finally brought into the fold of what actually happened, are we seeing a corrupt Jedi in this era of Star Wars? Throughout this series, we've seen a select group of Jedi losing control of a situation that they created, causing the downfall of the Witches of Brendok, and in this final episode, we're seeing Master Sol surrender to his internal struggle, with the past now coming to the surface, which was similar to Osha. Now, we might think it's only a select few of the Jedi that show us this corruption, but as we progress through the episode, we actually find out that it's much larger than expected. Not only that, but we're actually witnessing Senator officials approach the Jedi wanting to investigate them for this potential corruption, with the Jedi willing to stop at nothing to keep the cover-up, led by Master Venestra. And it's interesting to actually see how far they're willing to go to keep this cover-up so that they don't relinquish their power. Thanks to episode 8, what is interesting to me is that you can start to feel that the Jedi are willing to stop at nothing to protect their dominance in the galaxy. Master Venestra finds out through the Force on her visit to the site where the incident had occurred what actually happened all those years ago. And after all of that covering up from the select group of Jedi, after she ends up finding out, she ends up covering up a cover-up. Now, from all of this, you can truly see how and why the dark side are given relevancy to rise because of the actions of the Jedi. So really and truly, when you think about it, the Jedi are the cause for their own problems. Now, for me, predictable or not, episode 8 did finally bring some suspense as we are brought to the close, and also 2 surprise appearances. In the previous flashback episode, we know that Mae got to witness the shocking actions of the Jedi, and Osha didn't. In episode 8, our main characters are finally brought together in their final standoff before the next steps get pushed in motion. We get to see Master Sol and the Sith battle it out on Brendok, while Mae tries to break through to Osha to finally inform her of the truth. As we move closer to the end of the episode, and our characters are all in picture together, Mae quite cunningly manages to get Master Sol to confess to his crimes, while he is unaware Osha has actually entered their presence. Once the truth is unveiled, everything that Osha has been struggling with internally finally comes to the surface and takes over, which lays the sequence of events that unfold next. What we also get to see from this episode are 2 surprise appearances of 2 quite major characters. One that we have seen many times and one that we've never seen before. Now, for some it might be predictable and for others it might not be. But what we get to witness with Osha is the show finally providing us with that suspense that this show has been crying out for. Not only that, but with the 2 surprise appearances from those 2 major characters, we're provided with a bit of a gasp gasping moment, which does start to add a little bit of excitement into the fold. The only thing I would say is that I would have probably liked Disney to have given them a little bit more of an active role in the show, because I personally think it would have added a lot more to the show overall. Now for me, the Jedi are supposed to follow a specific code that's embedded into their religion. I know I've said that the Jedi seem to be corrupt in this era, but Master Sol specifically for me showed a bit of inconsistency. There is a sequence in this episode where Mae and Master Sol are in spaceships, with Mae trying to get away from Master Sol and head to Brendok. Now, for a moment in that high chase pursuit, Master Sol's actions look like he's going to try to cause a crash that would inevitably take Mae's life. And if it wasn't for Basil the tracker, then she very well might have. In this show, Master Sol has portrayed a bit of a Qui-Gon Jinn vibe to his character, but this specific sequence had him completely out of character. For someone as high ranking as him in the Jedi Order, to have such a level of dark thought is inconsistent, the Jedi being corrupt or not in this era. Now, what was going on with the helmet scene? At the beginning of episode 8, we pick up from where we left off, where we find Osha actually putting on the Sith helmet. All of a sudden, she's struggling to breathe, and the Sith Lord actually runs over to help her, but then begins to struggle themselves in this moment. Disney didn't really provide any clarity with what was going on in the scene. The only time where we've seen this happen before in this series is when Torbin's mind is taken over by one of the witches of Brendok. But there are no witches of Brendok in this scene, nor is there anyone else in the cave where this scene is actually happening. For me, straight away, this left a question in my head that was left unanswered, to be honest. I think I can hazard a guess, predictable or not, but there really isn't any clarity, and instead you're left to assume. Now I know you can put 2 and 2 together, but again, clarity, clarity, clarity. Especially when you're in the season finale without confirming a season 2. Now there are definitely some lingering questions for me. Because of the underachievement in clarity in this episode, as well as the inconsistencies, this for me is where the questions arise. Why are the Jedi so corrupt in this era? Are the majority of the Jedi corrupt in this era? How did the major character that was shown for 10 seconds cross paths with the Sith Lord character that we know? How did the Sith Lord know that the events that take place in this episode were guaranteed to happen? And why did Master Sol show a level of inconsistency when displaying dark side characteristics? Now the stars in this episode are Lee Jung-jae as Jedi Master Sol, Amandla Steinberg as both Mae and Osha, and they who shall not be named, the Sith Lord. Now, who are the ones to watch in episode 8? As always, positive or negative, we need our choices for the ones to watch. And those ones to watch for me are Jedi Master Sol, Mae, Osha, and the Sith Lord. Who is the one to watch out of the ones to watch? For me, this was a clear and obvious winner, given the turn of events that took place. With that being said, the chosen one to watch, for me, is Osha. This is because of the prediction that I made in previous episodes actually coming true, with her change of allegiance, which made the episode more entertaining. Now we get to see some interesting development from the characters in this final episode. Does Master Sol have dark side characteristics? Throughout this series, I've made it no secret when I've suggested that certain Jedi have shown dark side characteristics. And what's interesting is Master Sol hasn't actually been one of them up until episode 7 and now 8. Mae's getaway sequence, where Master Sol pushes himself to catch her, is one that comes to mind. But there is a moment in the battle sequence between Master Sol and the Sith Lord. Master Sol says that he is going to destroy the Sith Lord, that he is battling in a way that shows anger. Additionally, as Master Sol is on Brendok, he is following his footsteps from the past and revisiting the events that took place. We get to see him in pain from those past events as he's walking through them, which is a characteristic of the dark side. Now we have seen this before with Anakin in the Clone Wars movie and in the Revenge of the Sith, where he is in pain from certain things that he's done. And this is similarly coming across with Master Sol. Now, Mae and Osha. How evil will Osha become, and what will happen with Mae? After all the struggle that Osha has had to go through, being haunted by her past, the inevitable outcome finally happens. Osha saw a future when she put on the Sith Lord's helmet, depicting who she thought was her sister actually turning out to be herself in this scene, face on with Master Sol. From this, she's able to gain the location of where Master Sol and Mae are, which is actually Brendok, and she goes with good intention, turning to bad and joining the Sith Lord in their conquest. Now with Mae, she comes across as somewhat balanced, not pushing all the way to the dark side, but not exactly demonstrating a pure heart, since she has been our assassin in this show. In this episode, Mae has set Master Sol up to get the truth out of him, without him being aware that Osha's actually in his presence. The events that take place soon after sees the Sith Lord actually show mercy to Mae, taking away her memory and sparing her in trade to have Osha as their apprentice. If we get a season 2 of The Acolyte, I think we'll get to explore Osha's journey into the dark side a bit more. I would hope that we get to see the change in her eyes, like we got to see with Anakin, with that Sith yellow vibe. What's also interesting is that the major character that we haven't ever seen before will most probably be involved in her training and development, which makes me think that she will become very, very evil, given that she has 2 major Sith Lord teachers. When it comes to Mae and her now being taken into custody by the Jedi, I think that given that she's lost a large amount of her memory, my prediction is that she could actually become a Jedi, seeing the corrupt Jedi Order take full advantage of the situation that lies before them. Now, did the Sith Lord know what was going to happen all along? In the opening scene to the episode, Osha is struggling to breathe with the Sith's helmet on. The Sith Lord attempts to help her, but also gets caught in the crossfire. Again, I don't know who or what is responsible for what was happening, but Osha is able to see into the future, where she seems to believe that she is seeing her sister Mae confronting Master Sol, when in fact it was Osha all along. Now the Sith Lord comes across as if they know what the truth is behind what really is going to happen. The Sith Lord's portrayal in this comes across as if they are in complete control of the situation, suggesting through little subtle hints that it's going to be a female that will have control over what is going to play out, which I thought was a cool touch, but it would have been nice to have some clarity on it. Now for me, there wasn't anything that was particularly new by way of visuals, but we did get some moments. There is a high-speed chase scene with Master Sol coming after Mae as she's trying to make a quick getaway, but because of her less superior ship, she decides to move into what looked like a Saturn ring made up of small chunks of ice and rock. The other thing that I liked is the revisit of the Bunta tree. I thought it played out nicely towards the ending of the episode where Mae and Osha go their separate ways. Lastly, as you all know, I love a lightsaber scene. But interestingly, it's not the battling that I liked the most when it came to the lightsabers. It was the kyber crystal bleeding I actually liked the most. We have never seen a kyber crystal bleeding before, and it was awesome to see. We might not get a load to call out with visuals, but I did think the best thing out of all of episode 8 had to be the kyber crystal bleeding, because that is definitely something that I welcome into the Star Wars universe that we haven't seen before. Now I thought the lighting played a key role in this episode as we transition through the story arc. Apart from the space scene, we're met with a bit of a gloomy mood throughout the episode. What actually added to this is that as we transition through the episode, the mood lighting changes, aligning to the story and the overall narrative. I thought that it gave a cool feel that they went back to the scene of the crime, reliving things all over again, while playing out the present, and in doing so, they gave a gloomy look and feel to the scene, which shifts to a more vibrant mood of lighting towards the end. This helped with the feel of the episode, emphasizing on the emotions that play out in the story arc of this finale, making it a more enjoyable watch. The only thing I would say is that Disney could have made this entire show more enjoyable if they kept a level of consistency threaded throughout. Does episode 8 claw back some of the disappointment from the previous episode and the wider episodes of the show? We do get something fresh and new, as well as a cool twist, predictable or not. We get to see a character that we've never seen before, and they are a major figure within the Star Wars universe. Now we don't get to see this character for very long when the Sith Lord and Osha are on the unknown planet, which is a bit of a disappointment. We get to see a transition from good to evil, which I do think was predictable, but at the same time entertaining to a certain degree. I'd say the most entertaining piece for the episode was actually the kyber crystal bleeding, because we haven't had the opportunity to ever witness this before in a live action setting. But at the same time, I don't think they actually went far enough with this. Granted, if there is a second season, we might get more of a better script, but there will be a lot of heat and a lot of eyes to see if it's successful. I think that this episode did have some entertaining pieces, but I would have wanted to see a bit more. And I think that's the underlying problem with this show in its entirety, making it a bit disappointing. Earlier in the week, we did a live session for the Binge of the Week, where we specifically talked about the Acolyte show. Some really insightful points were made in the chat, which I'm grateful for the interaction, which actually made me reflect. There was a point made about the fact that there are multiple directors that have owned the delivery of different episodes within the Acolyte series, which could have been the cause for the show not having the consistency around it. Overall, I found the episode to be okay, but nothing special. I thought they rounded off the show and provided the final outcome with the plot twist that could be debatable in its predictability, but the main thing is they provided the clarity and outed the Jedi's corruption, swaying you to reassess your feelings in a way for the Sith. I thought it was good how we got to see character portrayals being out of character, but I did think there was a layer of inconsistency in there. When I think of the visual and cinematography, I thought the standout here has to be the kyber crystal bleeding, because we haven't seen it before. Now, this episode held my attention similarly to episode 5 and 6, but I don't think it was enough to help the show in its entirety. I give episode 8 of The Acolyte 3 out of 5 buckets, meaning it's a binge watching 50-50. If you've been watching the show, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to smash a like if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and follow along on social media to stay up to date with the latest content. If you like what you've seen here and you want to see more, click right here to see more. I'm Matthew, this is Binge Watcher, thanks for binging with me.